By the time I was ready to build my shop, one thing that I knew is I only wanted to make greenwood chairs. I would never want a table saw, I would never want a planer, so I didn't have to have room for them. So my shop could be much smaller, so it's 16 by 20. Over 20 years later, it's still 16 by 20, and it's still the right size. You could even get by with a smaller shop, but I like this size. Nothing's like using the tools. Nothing. If I couldn't make the chairs using these tools, then I would find something else to make with these tools. And my favorite tool of all is still the draw knife in conjunction with the shaving horse. You know, to me, they're like peanut butter and jelly. They go together perfectly. And I never tire of sitting on the shaving horse with the draw knife. It's been 30 years. I don't think I'm ever going to tire of it. I still like to split out all of my maple, all the oak. I love that control. I love splitting open the log and having like Christmas every time. And I love turning on the lathe. I love turning good maple on the lathe. It's fun to turn, just like it's fun to be on the shaving horse, but the lathe also has this other element, and that is that every time I turn a leg, and that is most likely the same leg that I've turned 20,000 of over the 30 years, it still pushes my skill level to be working that wood with that skew chisel to those tolerances. There was a silversmith, Bruce Metcalf was his name. He wrote a lovely piece about the hand and why in the world would we make things by hand, and talking about that level of expertise gained through thousands and thousands of hours of practice keeps you going because there's still an element of risk involved, but yet the risk is not too great to cause frustration. It's just at the right point to where you have to give it everything. You have to concentrate completely in order to pull it off. Carving the seat, you don't really need an adze with a pine seat. You can go straight to the skirt, but I like the adze. I like to pick it up. I like to use it for 4 or 5 minutes and rough out that seat. It's one of the more difficult tools to become an expert on, and I am far from being an expert with an adze. But that's one reason why I continue to use it on my pine seat, is just to slowly try to build skills up. But it is the dangerous tool. It's a fast tool. It's extremely fast on getting the job done. And then a good sharp scorp, the curved draw knife, end shave, whatever you want to call it, is a pleasure to use, especially carving pine. Those cuts that it makes coming off of a sharp tool on end grain pine just glisten. It looks like it's been waxed whenever the tool is sharp. And I'm just not interested in carving the seat with anything that plugs in. I'm not going to wear a dust mask. I'm not going to listen to some router or some Lancelot. And carving a pine seat, it's extremely fast. You know, you're talking 15 minutes to rough the seat out. That bit brace was given to me by Jenny Alexander in 1986. And I've drilled almost every single hole in my chairs with that bit brace. You know, it doesn't drill any better hole than a cordless drill. And I'll use a cordless drill on occasion where it really is going to work better than the bit brace. But, you know, I like to enjoy every second of my day, and picking up that plastic drill made in China, you know, it doesn't really add any quality to my day. You know, it's just let's get the hole drilled type thing. But the bit brace that Spofford gives me so much more. It has everything to do with just picking that tool up and feeling that rosewood handle and knowing that Alexander gave me that tool every time that I use it. You're not hearing the motor of the drill, you're hearing that bit cut in the wood. There's no burning. You can't create any smoke with the bit brace, you know. And I like the pace that these tools set. It says I'm in control of the pace of my day, you know. I never had a plan on ending up here. I never have a plan for anything, really. I think the main driving force for me ending up here was I didn't want to get a job. I just really did not want to get a job. But I had to make a living, and so how in the world was I going to do that? And I looked at different things that I could do. But I never would have looked at furniture because that's what other people did, other talented people did, and I didn't view myself as that at all. But Marilyn bought me Roy Underhill's first book in 1982, and I was just struck by this method of going to the woods and cutting down a tree and splitting it up with hammers and wedges that I already had, and shaping the part with a draw knife, which I had my dad's draw knife, and just build a shaving horse. Then all I needed was a bit brace and a bit, and I could pretty much build a post and rung chair. I loved the beauty of this, and I thought, wow, well, maybe I'll do that. I was working with an old fella at the time, Hugh Bowman. He was a retired cabinet maker in Marion, North Carolina. I was a carpenter, and he'd let me use his shop to do a couple of things. So we started working together a little bit. And then he pops up with this chair. I didn't know what a Windsor chair was. Pops up with this chair, and he goes, I think we ought to start making these. I'm going to order a kit, and we'll put it together, and then we'll start making them just like them. So that's what we did. But I couldn't figure out how to bore these holes in the legs. I was stuck completely. And that's when I met Dave Sawyer, which really just set everything in the right direction. Here I'd just been dying to make these chairs. I'd talked to lots of woodworkers who were much more knowledgeable than me, and all I got was negative feedback. And I didn't have an answer for any of that. And I saw Dave, and here was somebody doing it. Here was somebody making it. Here was somebody selling them. And Dave went, oh, yeah, you want to make Windsor chairs? Great. You can make Windsor chairs. Oh, right here I've got plans for 5 chairs. And he had 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper and a whole chair on that sheet of paper. Seat pattern, everything. He said, here you go. Take these and go make chairs. And here's my address. You can write me if you have any questions. So I became a chair maker like that next day. Went and had cards printed up. Chair maker. Yeah, I know. It sounds kind of crazy now. Certainly it was. But that's how much I wanted to do this. That's how much I wanted to work with these tools. And so I just stayed in the shop, just trying to do it by myself with nothing to read, nothing to look at. I couldn't find anything written on it. So I'd write Dave these long letters, and Dave would write me back. And I'd write him again. He'd write me back. And somewhere in April, the phone rang. April of '84, he called. And he said, your questions are too complicated now. You know too much. He goes, you're going to have to come up here. So Marilyn and I jumped in the car, and we got up to Dave's, and I spent 4 days with Dave in East Calais, Vermont. And Dave was just so gracious to just open everything up to me. I think I'd made 13 chairs by the time I drove up to Dave's. I certainly had put in a lot of frustrating hours, and Dave was able just to straighten out everything in those 4 days. It was phenomenal. It seemed like every 5 minutes he was saying, oh, no, turn that drill bit over and it'll work a little better. And I'd go, oh, wow, that's great. Look how that thing works now. I couldn't drive fast enough back home and get back to that little shop and start working. The level of my chair making just increased tenfold by visiting Dave. And I just stayed out in the shop working and working and working, turning out 50 chairs a year, just day in and day out. So looking forward, I've got 30 years behind me now, and if I'm in good a shape as my dad, I've got 30 more years in front of me, which is just exciting as hell. I just can't believe it. I got 30 more years of doing this? Good God, how lucky can you get? I could spend the next 30 years making continuous arms and comebacks and being completely content. And I think contentedness is very underrated. To me, it's a goal to be content. I could be very content just doing that same thing over and over and over again, which might sound boring to some people, but not to me at all. It's just a lovely thing to come down here and do day in and day out. I just outlasted everybody. And I think there's a whole lot of truth to that. I just refused to give up. I wasn't the best. I'm still not the best. Not at all. I see other people do work. I see other chair makers do work. And I'm just awed sometimes at the level of understanding and expertise and quality. But you just go down to the shop every day and you work. And eventually it'll work out. Eventually you get there.